past 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mike, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. The next thing I'd like to do is have a moment of silence for Mike Rolsten. Mike is an extended member of the election family. He has served as a poll watcher and as his wife did too. And he was vital in helping schedule poll watchers during the elections last year, and sadly he passed away. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank y'all very much for that. The next agenda item is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Carries. All right. Everyone, I believe, received a copy of the minutes from the December 9th regular meeting. And I need to know if there is a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Y'all are like in sync tonight. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Carries. All right. Old business. There being none, we will move on to new business. First agenda item is retention of the November 2020 and January 2021 election paperwork. Stacy, if you'd like to go ahead and explain.
I included a copy of the retention schedule for the Secretary of State, and in OCGA 21-2-73, it says all primary and election documents in the office of the election superintendent of each county and municipality shall be kept for at least 24 months. We have reached that time period for the November 2020 paperwork in our office and also the January 2021. So I wanted to just reach out to the board because I know over the time period we've had several things that have been sent to us. Nothing of any standing asking us not to get rid of those records, but legally the retention is passed for keeping those. So it would actually help our office if we could get them out because we've got all the stuff from the November and December election, to put in. So if we could do that, we would just need a vote on it. And I would also be able to reach out to the clerk's office and tell them that it's okay to dispose of the records they have as well at the courthouse because it's past that 24-month time period.
And the documents are what are the documents?
It's the election paperwork from the November 2020 and the January 2021. So it's the results, the unused ballots, the provisionals.
Any electronic records too?
As far as electronic records, we didn't have any because that was prior to us coming on. So
Well, you have the cards from the readers.
those get reprogrammed every time.
Okay.
How do you dispose of it? Like shredding
As
company?
far as the paperwork that we have in our office, we would shred. In the courthouse, I'm assuming that they would take it to the county recycling center and have them shred that paperwork because that's I think where most of all of that goes.
Is there any pending litigation statewide?
is that, that thing in Spalding County is still going on.
Is that related to 2020?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
check
the
that.
Spalding County, I believe, was for the May election, was it not? Yeah.
Okay.
And the emails that we have been sent, and I forwarded them to Phil when we received them, they're just from individuals asking us not to get rid of those records.
Yeah, and there's a way, if you're in litigation, like you were pointing out, that attorney can send you a notice that stops you from going through record retention policies, that sort of thing. But to my knowledge, we've not gotten anyone, though. I'll double check that. That's a good question, but I don't recall anything like that. But now a citizen just telling us you better not destroy it does not
Yeah, that would
preempt
fall under.
your policy,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And normally we don't have to have a board vote on it, but just because that election was such a controversial election, Phil thought it would be a good idea just to let the board make that decision on if we want to keep it any longer or if we want to vote to go ahead and get rid of it properly the way that you should after every 24 months.
Well, I think enough time has gone by to where I don't think we're having any issues going forward.
And my question was gonna be for Phil about whether we had received a litigation hold, but you said
I don't think
not
we
that you
have. I'll
can
double
recall,
check.
and you'll double check,
Yeah.
and there's not any other reason. I mean, I'm wondering because of the, grand jury investigation in Fulton County, I mean, but I don't guess we're really involved in that.
No, and they've not given us any notice
Okay.
to hold. I'll double check on the case though.
Do I have any motion?
Well, if he has to double check, do we want to wait?
I mean, you could vote pending that confirmation. And then if I'm wrong and there is a litigation hold, then she won't destroy it.
Okay, well, in that case.
If you wanted to.
Motion to dispose of 2020 and January 21 records pending check by legal counsel as to whether there's any litigation pending.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the poll worker appreciation dinner. I know Stacy's been looking at options and getting quotes after the last meeting. So Stacy, you have an update for us?
I do. I've got it scheduled for March the 3rd. I included what I sent out to the poll workers in your binders. It's going to be at the Recreation Center at 6:00 p.m. And I hope that all the board members will be able to attend.
Did you get a final quote for the food yet? Do you still?
I'm still working on that, but because it's under a certain amount, finance said that we did not have to bid it out. But I did reach out to several people to get quotes for it. So
You know, you have an official number,
of who's attending.
well, of who's going to be catering it and how much it's going to cost.
Well, right now, the cheapest quote that I have got is $14 a head. So I'm planning, we had 81 poll workers just from last year. So the invitation has been sent out to each one of them, and then including board members. I just went ahead and asked for a quote for 100. So the cheapest quote we have so far is $14 per person.
Anyone else have any other questions for Stacy about that item? Okay,
That's great.
all right. Okay, next item on the agenda is item C, discussion about polling place agreement. I was downtown with Stacy and Rhonda, and there was a lot of discussion when we were there at the Capitol about people losing voting locations, and this was something that I think Stacy and Phil might have even discussed. So if you want to elaborate.
When we were in Athens back in January, I had spoke to a lady, a counterpart from Butts County, and she was talking about a polling place agreement. We have 12 different polling locations, and none of them have a written agreement. It's all verbal. And that's been great in the past, but having a verbal agreement, especially with people phasing out, we need something in writing. So if someone new comes into that polling location, that they know what to go by, as well as it secures us in having a place to hold the election at in that polling place. So she was nice enough to send me a copy of what they have. I have sent it to the commissioners. I've sent it to Phil. We've looked over it. And if we want to build something for Pickens County based around this as an example, then we have the okay to do so. So just when you have time, if you'll look over it and see if the board agrees that this is something, the format that they would like to do it in, we can begin starting to work on that this year when we have some downtime and getting written agreements with each of our polling places.
Question. So this is good. I think it's great, just like we did with the municipal elections. But what if whoever's currently doing it decides we don't want to do that anymore? And that means we got to change a polling place. So how does that go? We got a contingency plan?
If we have to change a polling place, the first thing that has to be done is it has to be approved by the Secretary of State.
Right.
I believe that there are instances where it's an emergency change, and you don't have to go through as much of the red tape as what we did for moving the city of Jasper's polling place. Paulding County went through this back last year. Their school board decided they didn't want them to use schools anymore, so they had to scramble to find places to hold the election at because of that. So there are a contingency plan set up if it was an emergency, but with them signing this document, Phil, will the location be responsible for upholding what they signed even if they changed hands?
Yes. I mean, that's, I think you hit on the purpose of having the agreement.
Oh, no, I totally agree. It's just that I'm just saying that if you approach the people that we've been doing it with already, and they're the ones that say, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, it may bring it to a head, you're right. But
Yeah,
I'd rather know
because now they're having to sign something or whatever, not that it would, and obviously if they don't, and we can't convince them otherwise, we have to change the polling place.
But
I know that's a lot of work.
I think I'd rather find that out now.
Yeah.
And then now we've got time to react to it as opposed to.
Yeah.
And this
2 weeks.
agreement says that either party has the right to terminate the agreement with 6 months' notice. Would they give us,
Yes.
if they terminate it within 6?
Because the Secretary of State has to approve it, and once they approve it, then you have to run it in the newspaper or in the legal organ, and then you have to, I know with the city of Jasper, they had to read, had 2 reads of it at their city council meeting before it's completely approved,
Oh, yeah.
and so there's a lot that goes into moving a location, but if it's an emergency move, some of that red tape is taken out because it is an emergency.
I mean, you wouldn't want it to be for a year's notice, you think? Is that too much?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we can get it done in 6 months, I think. We can talk about that. It's, you think about some of these entities like the schools and the community centers and that sort of thing, they'll, in being respectful of their use of facilities, I think that they might you know, the shorter the window for them, the better. But yet we don't want it as so short that we can't get done what we have to get
Yeah.
done, and if 6 months works.
6 months, okay.
I'd rather have it 5 years when
I say lock it in as long as we can,
Yeah.
right? But I think that it's, both options are, like you say, like, we could have people say, okay, well, no, we don't wanna sign this agreement, but at the same time, they could pull us using any time if we don't have something in writing, and so this just
at
solidifies.
the last minute, and that's
Mhm.
what, we've come very close.
Cause I know we've had, obviously, change in leadership with the school system, and, you know, we've had change in leadership with the fire department, and anybody could come in and say, we don't wanna do that anymore, so.
The good thing about it is this year, we have the municipal elections, so we know since we conduct their elections, they're not gonna tell us no. So, that gives us the rest of this year, you know, to work on this, and if somebody doesn't want to agree to this, then it gives us the opportunity to start looking for another location.
One thing I wonder about on the 6 months is if maybe, and I'm trying to think about it, but I can't, I can't like do it right this second in my brain. But maybe it would be the longer of 6 months from the end of the term, or 6 months from, the general election.
6
'Cause
months
I'm trying
prior,
to
6 months
think,
prior to the general election.
yeah,
Six-
exactly.
well,
So that we're not in a crunch, I'm trying to think like if somebody signed this agreement like June 1st, or not June
about-
1st, say
what about-
May 1st, then they,
6 months,
you know,
what
that
about 6
it's,
months prior to
that
any
they
of
could
any
give us
election?
6 months prior to the end, but that's right before the general election,
Yeah, it might
which would
just
be terrible.
Yeah.
So you can maybe think about
Maybe,
how that
yeah.
could be worded.
Maybe 6 months before any election, which would
Something
include
like that.
because primaries would be the same.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking that it says have access to the premises the day before, and the day after. We might want to be a little bit, of a time. I know you can't always guarantee when they're gonna drop off the equipment, but I know if we at least put a time in there, that may make them feel a little bit better too, so.
Yeah, and it created a challenge for, in Hinton, with the community center out there, because Richie had it booked through the weekend, and yeah, I spoke with him, he spoke to me about it, and, you know, it was accessible to move equipment in then on Monday, but,
With maybe a specific time that.
Just a window even, maybe, you know, between like 3 and 6 PM the day before, and.
Well, see, the, Public Works that deliver our equipment, they start out first thing 9 o'clock that morning. And we've had days where it's rained and it's taken them longer. We've had days when they were shorthanded, so they didn't have as much staff to help them. But it's always done by 5 o'clock that afternoon. So it's anywhere between 9 and 5 on that Monday.
And if that's the window, then that may be the window, just so that they know when we're expecting Bill to have access to the
And we've been
building.
working over the last couple of elections on a consistent route for them to take, like every time deliver this order, because it helps us pull it at the office and have it ready for them to go. So we kind of know it down at least the first half of the day and the second half of the day, so we could probably close that window in a little bit smaller than 9 to 5 by the route that they take every time.
But I think it's a great plan that we continue to look at this and come up with what will work for our county, but adopting an agreement, I think is gonna be very beneficial.
I think going forward that everything needs to be in writing, because it's been great that we've been able to do it this long on a verbal agreement, but things are changing in the county, and it would just be really good to have it in writing.
What about on the other side of who is the authorized person at each polling location to sign for that location?
I would say that it would be the people that we have as primary contacts that we contact about before each election, you know, saying, hey, we're coming in on this day. But then when you run into some of the churches that we use, it might be the board or the minister that signs on behalf of the church, or the schools. I know I spoke with Miss Goodman and she will take it to her board, and then I'm sure she'll sign on behalf of the board like I would for our office, but the board will vote, for her to sign it.
And Stacy, as part of this process, are you going to assess whether some of the locations need to be moved?
We've already assessed, we went out back in May and assessed all the different polling locations. There's only one currently right now that I know of that we probably need to have a discussion later on about if we think if the board thinks it needs to be moved. But out of all of them, there's only one that I know of.
Yellow Creek.
Right, I was thinking, is that the one, are our brains going?
I just wanted to confirm, I know we'd heard
Yes.
that, we've been hearing about it since we basically came on the scene here, so I figured that's what it was.
Yes, I know that there was the issue of people being in line to vote when a call came through at the fire station and they had to get the fire trucks out of the bay and people were lined up in the bay. So that's just one thing. If the board wants to discuss that at a later time, we can add it to the agenda about what to do with that polling location.
And potential places to move it to. Because I think that's been a bit of an issue. Okay.
All right. Any additional discussion on that item? Great points. We'll get it working, moving forward. So thank you. Okay, item D, the discussion on the legislative updates. There's a sheet that lists all the current House bills. And also there was something sent around about the budget for the Secretary of State's office and writing or contacting legislators and other elected officials. So
I tried to compile the two updates that we have got from our Gabrielle representative down at the Capitol. The printout that I put in your binders is a combination of the House bills that are currently circulating and also the Senate bills. The House did approve the 2023 budget, so now it goes to the Senate committee for approval. But I just tried to include information about each one of them that are down at the Capitol right now circulating, and then also House Bill 17 and House Bill 200 have both had the first readers and second readers of those bills. And I haven't received an update so far this week on anything else, but that's the most current that I have.
Election day is state holiday.
Well, I appreciate you sending out this legislative updates when you receive them, that it's really helpful.
I know that when we were at the state capitol, Tony Adams, who is the gentleman who sends the updates to us, he was sending it out to the regional facilitators, and they were sending it to us, and that's how I was getting it to the board. But there were several counties who currently doesn't have a regional facilitator, so he started posting it on the Buzz. And I think that works better because y'all can all see it at the same time that I see it and get the exact same information that I do, instead of me having to forward something on that I got from someone else.
all right, as far as the budget, when we were downtown at the Capitol several weeks ago, one of the things that wasn't included in the budget is a new mini printer, I guess is the best way to describe it. And those were gonna be about $600 per, is that what you understood as well?
Yeah, and the state put out something that they did not include that in the budget, so.
Okay,
that
because
will-
I didn't see that in there, so
the
I just
cost-
wanted to,
The cost of that will be on the counties.
on the counties, okay. And at some point, we'll try to, but they demonstrated it downtown, and basically it takes the big regular printer there that we have, for early voting, and has it in a box, and it comes out like a receipt style. But they were gonna run $600 per, and so that would have to be something we would look at. But I was wondering if that made the Secretary of State's budget or not, 'cause
It
they,
did not.
okay.
And that's different than the whole business with the cellular pole pads, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It all works together, but this is, and I'll go more into it during my staff comments, but the check-in system for advanced in-person voting is going to be completely different starting in November than it has been in the past. Normally, you would go in, we would have the 2 laptops with people checking in, then you would move to the second station, which was the poll pads, and that's where your voter card would be programmed. And then you would be taken to your machine to insert your voter card and be able to vote. With the new poll pads, all the check-in system when you first come in is gonna be eliminated. Everything that's gonna be done, all the check-in, will be done through the poll pads. So the new setup for the poll pads is actually a metal stand, and the poll pad faces the poll worker, and they enter all the information. They scan the license just like they would do on election day. And then when it gets to the point where the voter will sign, instead of us having to print out a paper and them sign, the screen flips towards them and they can sign right there on the poll pad. And then the card can be programmed from the same station, and it eliminates so many stations. And Paulding County and Gilmer County both were part of the pilot program for this. And Paulding County says that it cut down check-in time to 38 seconds per voter.
That's significant.
So Gilmer County used it in the November election, the December, they just finished using it in their January runoff, and they're gonna be using it again in their March election that they're having. And they absolutely love it. They cannot say enough good things about it.
So what happens with Easy Vote?
We will still be using Easy Vote to track our absentees. We just won't be using it for check-in anymore.
So it sounds like it's similar to the process on a general election day. Is that right? I mean,
It's
where
gonna
the-
be where we used to say, you know, early voting and election day were two different beasts.
Right,
Now they're gonna be one and the same.
gotcha.
It kind of took a lot of the features that Easy Vote had that we used Easy Vote for, and the Secretary of State got with the polling pad company, which is No Ink, and they kind of combined it. So where I used Easy Vote to be able to see the number of voters coming in each day for early voting, I will be able to still see that, but I'll be able to see it through a program that the No Ink offers. So I'll still be able to get the same information that I get and be able to notify the media of totals and for each day and turnout. It'll just be done through the same company that gives us our poll pads.
So what I'm worried about is this business of it being a cellular poll pad, because as we know, sometimes cellular service in Pickens County is not the best. So, I mean, what's your thought
What
on
we
that?
have been told, and I'm hoping that they give us more information on this when we're at conference in Jekyll, but we have been told that even in places where you don't have cell service, the secured network that we're gonna be on, which is the same thing that EMTs and firefighters and police officers use, we will be on that. So even when you don't have service, it will still pick up service. But they haven't went a whole lot of in-depth, because we're not actually to the point of using that yet. But I'm hoping that when we're in conference, that they explain that a little bit more to us. Because that data plan that they're asking, to be approved in the budget, that's what that is for. And if the Secretary of State doesn't get the funding for that, then the funding is gonna have to come back onto the counties to pay for that.
Big ouch, yeah. So,
Data expensive.
I was wondering, because I was reading some of that stuff in the budget, they kept talking about the replacement UPS batteries, and they're trying to downsize it. What I'm trying to figure out is for the amount of cost that they're talking about for those batteries, why are they not looking at lithium batteries? They're lighter and they carry the same amount of loads.
That I could not tell you.
I
The
just-
first that we heard about replacing the batteries was when we were in Athens at our conference, and they showed us what the battery would look like. And I know from trying to pick up one of those batteries myself and how heavy it is, that the batteries that they're talking about going to would only weigh, maybe 50 pounds. And it would be a whole lot lighter trying to pick it up and move it than the large ones that we have now.
I just know from personal experience, I've got a battery, it's 120 amp hours, about this big, and it's the standard gel cell, and it weighs about 70 pounds, but I can get the same thing in for about 30 pounds and in lithium. I just couldn't afford it at the time. So, but for the amount of money they're talking about, I think you could do it. But maybe whoever you're talking to, bring it up and ask if maybe they are lithium, and I just don't know it.
Okay. We'll definitely ask that
It's a lot lighter.
when we go to conference.
the other thing they had mentioned was the disposal cost of the current ones too. And that, I don't know if that was part of that whole battery budget.
It
but-
is.
Yeah.
It's the new ones and the disposal of the old ones.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Well,
cost apparently in getting rid of those old ones, so.
It's recycled. Stuff can be recycled
Well,
wherever it
the
goes.
thing about the ones that we currently have, they said that you couldn't get a recycling company to take them. Something about what's in it, they have to be disposed of in a certain way, and that's why they included the disposal in the budget cost.
I guess let me say it, not a standard recycling place, but there's places that will recycle
Yeah,
that.
like your local
Yeah,
recycling
and
center
there's
wouldn't
a lot of
be able
cases
to.
they'll pay for them. It's just like if you go and take a battery down, you get a core charge for it. That's because somebody's recycling that material. Okay.
All right, anything else as far as, item D? Legislative updates? Okay. All right, Stacey, I know you hit already on a little bit of your staff comments, but if you'd like to continue with that, please.
The staff attended the Jarvis Training Conference in January in Athens. It was a 3-day conference. It was very informative. We've done a lot of training, throughout the state. We went to Catoosa County one day to do some Jarvis training. We've done some online Jarvis training, and it successfully went live yesterday.
Did it?
So we are in the new system. They're trying to work some kinks out with it, because like everything, when you go to something new, especially, with so many counties, there's gonna be issues. So we're sitting back, just doing a little bit at a time, not trying to enter everything, so that way if there is something they have to work out, we don't have to go back and redo all.
This is the same system that was supposed to go live last April.
That they decided to do right before the election.
Yeah. So that they've worked on improving it a whole lot. They had people, doing a pilot program on it, starting last year, and work through that. They've added a lot of things that they knew we needed. Just going live, there's some things that I don't think was thought through that they've realized from other people reaching out, which I'm sure you saw the buzz about things that were needed. So they're trying to figure out, how to add those. The good thing with this new program is when we had ENET, when it was something that needed to be done, they would have to call the programmers. It would have to get programmed. Sometimes it would take weeks, sometimes it would take months. With Jarvis, everything can be done and created within, a couple days. So that really helps with trying to figure out things that we need and don't need that they have put in the program. So, we're still learning, everybody across the state's still learning, but I think we have a better grasp, than what we were working with last month on the program. Like I said, the Secretary of State has issued all counties, new poll pads. I think there was only, 15 counties that they hadn't been delivered to when we were in Athens. And I explained that the laptops, through No Ink will change the check-in process. The one thing I did want to, point out to the board is, that these new poll pads have been CISA reviewed. So that was one thing that the Secretary of State, stressed, that CISA reviewed them and everything so far has worked out well. As far as the 2024 election, we have 2 poll pads that we use for early voting, and I know we had talked about purchasing more laptops for check-in for the 2024 election. This will eliminate us having to purchase those additional additional laptops. We will, however, have to purchase additional poll pads. We're kind of trying to go ahead and lay the groundwork for 2024 now. So we have estimated that we need probably 5 check-in stations for advanced in-person voting for 2024. So that means we'll need to purchase 3 more poll pads. The pricing as far as a laptop or the poll pads is going to be very close to the same, but we will have to purchase the stations that Jackie was talking about that has the metal holder for the poll pad, along with, it comes with the printer, and the printer fits in the metal holder. So those run about $600 each, so we will look at probably having to have the cost of that times 5 plus buy the 3 additional poll pads. We were kind of waiting to see, what they were going to approve as far as the budget before I reached out to No Ink on pricing for that, but now that we know it wasn't included in the budget, I can start reaching out to them and get them to give us a quote. And the election software that we currently use, we've been using it since 2020. Like anything, software, becomes out of date. So they did notify us that Dominion is working on a new version of software. It is currently in EAC certification, which is the Election Assistance Commission. They certify any programming that's used. So when we were in Athens, that was the last update that we had, was it still in certification. Dominion's presented and said that they doubled down on the issues that the CISA report found last year, and they have addressed all the security concerns from that report. This version will be the 5.17, and it will have to be installed on our equipment, but that will be installed by somebody from the Secretary of State's Center for Election Systems, and those are the same people that come in from the state and certified our equipment when we moved it from our old office to our new office. It's not a Dominion person who comes in and installs that equipment, it is somebody from the state. And then once the new equipment is approved and installed, then we'll be able to start training for our staff on the new equipment, because it will change several things. January 24th, our staff attended the Gavrio Day at the state capitol. We were able to speak with Steve Gooch, he's the Senate Majority Leader, about our field of work and some of the challenges that we face in conducting elections. He was very gracious in taking some time to sit down and talk to us, and we had a really nice visit. They also had the display, demoing the new check-in system down there, and representatives were able to come in and see it for themselves. We saw it demoed in Athens and in Atlanta, and I really do think that it's gonna help speed up the check-in process for voters a whole lot. Our office was notified last week that we have been selected for an audit from the Ethics Commission on our campaign finance paperwork. This documents go back for the last 5 years all the way to 2018. This will include not only what I file for the county, but also the municipalities, the city of Jasper, the city of Nelson, and town of Talking Rock. I've reached out to the clerks on this issue, and I'm working with them about them supplying me paperwork all the way back from 2018, and we'll get that submitted for that audit. And I told you I had spoke with Janet Goodman. She's the interim superintendent for the Board of Education. I'm working on dates with her for the 2024 election. I had spoke with her. I know that the previous board had talked to her about the election for 2024. Obviously, November election day is, the schools are out, but for the presidential primary and also the general primary, school is in. And I told her that they're so gracious at letting us use their facilities, but I do know that when we are in their gymnasiums, the kids can't use the gymnasium. They have to stay in the classrooms. You know, that's a hard time for the teachers. You know, we talked about the different issues that we face with that. And I told her that I would get her the dates for the 2024. She could present it to the new board if they wanted to amend their school calendar to do a virtual day. I do know that puts a strain on parents trying to find childcare, so we address the different issues. But we're just in talks right now about what to do to make the situation better for the students and for voters. So those were a couple of things that we talked about. I also plan on meeting with her and talking about parking situations at the school, and then again, when we come up with an agreement for polling locations, I'll meet with her about that.
So Stacy, about the, so I saw that this House Bill 116 would make Election Day a state holiday if that ends up getting passed. Do you know if that's only the general election, or would it include the primary and runoffs?
I'm not sure.
Or even if that would even pass, who knows, but okay.
Yeah, I know, I believe that the November election, I think most places that are schooling systems, they close for that day, but I don't think it's considered a holiday. So I would think that they would probably consider just that day, if I had to guess, because you have so many different times where you have special elections, and they're not going to make that a set date to have holidays for those days. So I would think it's probably just pertaining to November, but I'll check on that and make sure.
Okay.
And then our staff will attend the Gavrio conference next week in Jekyll. Just a couple items I wanted the board to know that will be included on this agenda is open records request, municipal elections and qualifying, list and street maintenance, and preparing for the presidential election. So our office has already started working on the future election for 2024, but then when we're in conference, then that's gonna be a big part of what our conference is gonna be on as well.
Sounds like very busy.
No.
All right, public comments. And we'll move on from that. Board comments.
Well, I mean, you know, I know the public doesn't see all the many emails that we get through the buzz, and I'm sure you guys get many more. I mean, yesterday, I did not look at my email because it's my big volunteer day, and I turned on my Outlook this morning. I had 36 emails just from the buzz. So I hope that the public can appreciate the hard work of our election staff, because it really is, it's a lot. keep up with all the changes and with just everything you guys have to do every day, and we appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And it's a little bit more right now because like I said, we just went live yesterday. So everybody that is having an issue is posting their issue on the bus. So the good thing is all counties get to see it at the same time instead of them picking up the phone and calling and only the Secretary of State knowing the issue. We're all getting the same information, which is a really good platform to have. So that way we're all on the same page.
The only thing I have is just comments back on some of your points. I had a question. I know I've seen it, and I don't know if they're replacing them or not, but the card programmers for the poll pads, the little holder, and that's been an ongoing issue because of the way it sits in there. And I saw that No Ink had like a holder that they had designed for it that fits around the lap. It looks to hold nice and secure. Are we having those?
So that's part of the $600 package. It's
Okay.
the metal stand, and
gotcha.
it actually secures the poll pad to where it can't move around.
Mhm.
It's the printer that sits underneath it, and then it's also a plastic piece that secures that card reader so it can't wiggle around as much. I'm not saying it won't ever have a problem, but it holds it
It's
more
gotta be a lot
securely
less
than it
what
did
we
before.
deal with, yeah.
And should hold a connection better than what we previously had where it didn't have anything to secure it.
Yeah. And then the only other question I had is you were talking about the Dominion version upgrade and stuff. Do you know if that is gonna be the same ballot type revision that we've been seeing since Dominion, or is it the new one where they can actually read like a full printed up ballot? Do you know?
I don't. They didn't give us a whole lot of information because it was still in the approval process. So I'm hoping they are one of the presenters while we are in conference. I'm hoping we'll have more information on that as well.
Well, I asked because, that's what they said before when we saw it at the last conference there in Athens, was they had it working and that it was just needed approval. So I'm wondering, is this the approval for that, or is that a different vision that, I don't know. If you find out, let me know.
I will.
One thing I wanted to say is, unbeknownst to me, sometimes when we're emailing, Stacy's not in them, and so that's how certain things didn't get. So Stacy, we need to make sure that we include you, even if we hit to
Yes.
elections board.
If you send an email out and just choose the group elections board, I'm not in that. I have to be added separately because the election board is just you. So I believe somebody sent an email out addressing me, but it didn't go to me, it only went to, so that's why I didn't respond, was because I didn't get it.
Wow.
So yeah, we just need to make sure, and I didn't, like I say, unbeknownst, but we have identified the issue, and moving forward, we will make sure that we include Stacy and not just elections board when we send out an email, so.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
So if I send Stacy a note and say, Stacy, what did you mean about this? I knew nothing.
But I didn't know either, so we're in the same boat, Becky, so.
If her name hadn't been on the top of the thing, I wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Right, so, yeah. All right. Anything else?
Live and learn.
Board comment wise, Larry, you've been quiet tonight, you doing okay?
Doing all right.
All right, glad to hear
I
it.
made it.
All right, well then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Make it.
make it motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, meeting adjourned.